Hi, everybody. Happy Chardonnay evening. I am Molly Moran. I'm the owner of Table Wine here in Madison, Wisconsin. And tonight is Get to Know Chardonnay. So we are going to talk about this lovely grape and taste a trio of wines from all over the world. And I'm really excited. This is a class that I teach. When I used to teach classes in person prior to 2020, I would teach Chardonnay class somewhat frequently. And I noticed that people were either like staunch Chardonnay fans and wanted all of their Chardonnay to taste like whatever Chardonnay they liked, or they hated Chardonnay. So, and were open to coming to the class to kind of see if they could be proven wrong. And I will say that I've done a pretty good job of turning haters into appreciators. So wherever you find yourself in the Chardonnay camp, or maybe you're nowhere near the Chardonnay camp, I hope that you enjoy the wines tonight. If you are joining us live, as usual, I have a poll question. I have 2 questions tonight. So they're quick questions. Please just go ahead and answer them before we get started. They help me kind of gauge what people's interest is in Chardonnay, and for tonight specifically kind of what style you're drawn to, and that will help me kind of guide the conversation a little bit. And then we do always have like an opening question, and tonight's opening question is what's something delicious that you had to drink recently that wasn't wine? I know that that's bizarre for me to ask, but and we were getting lots of really great answers and lots of cocktail great answers, so I'm loving it. A Cuban version of a Manhattan. I'm curious. Couldn't tell you what was in it. I had 3. I'm guessing if it was Cuban, like maybe would it have been rum instead of whiskey in your Manhattan? That sounds totally delicious. Here at my house, we are big simple syrup, like fruit simple syrup people. So I made a blueberry simple syrup, and then we have more mint than we know what to do with. So I had blueberry, like a nojito, basically, with blueberry simple syrup. So it was a little limeade, a little mint, a little blueberry simple syrup. It was delicious. So I have a 9-year-old. Can you tell? Not everything is cocktail in my life. I'm going to look at the poll real quick before we get started. So it looks like we have more non-Chard drinkers than Chardonnay drinkers. So I love that. And I say thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here. It really means a lot to me when people take a class about something that they don't gravitate towards. It's easy to take a class about something that we love, right? Oh, look, the votes are just going up and up. If you know that you like Italian reds and you take an Italian red class, then you're kind of like happy, right? And so it's really cool to see a lot of you who are not Chardonnay people being here today. So that's really great. And it's also super interesting to me to see that no one who's watching live, at least, is in the total oak and butter camp. That some of you like some creaminess and some of you want all the acid. So that's great because that's going to work out well with our lineup. If anybody had said, I want all the oak and butter, if you're watching this recorded or you haven't answered yet or whatever, I hope that you still like the wines, but I did not go with the extreme buttered side of Chardonnay. So great. I think we're all in for a treat. So let's get started. As I said in the chat to begin, we're going to start with the Chablis when we get to the drinking portion of the evening. But for now, I'm going to talk a little bit about some fundamental information. But if you want something in your glass right now, Chablis would be where to start. So just some basic fundamentals so that we're all kind of on the same page about Chardonnay. It is the most widely grown grape. The most widely grown white grape in the world. It hovers around 4th or 5th in terms of all grapes, but it is the most widely grown white grape, and it is grown throughout the wine world. So it is what is referred to as a noble grape, and those are grapes that are grown in wine regions across the world. So things like Pinot Noir, Riesling, Cabernet Sauvignon, Chardonnay, grapes that can grow old world and new world in different soils and different climates. Those are known as the noble grapes. And so as you're kind of exploring and learning more about wine, getting a really solid working knowledge of those noble grapes can be like a really great place to kind of start as you learn more and kind of always kind of learn about noble grapes. Generally speaking, Chardonnay, I think most of you have had it. Whether or not it's something you gravitate towards is a different story, but I think most of you have probably had a Chardonnay sometime. You've probably been to a wedding before. They are medium to full bodied, medium to medium high acidity. They're not super, super zippy, although we're going to see some kind of searing acidity here tonight. And they do qualify as dry, but they can often be quite fruity. So Chardonnay is known for being a fruit-forward white. So kind of like our friend Syrah in red wine land. Chard is kind of known for its fruitiness. It is one of the whites that age pretty well. So particularly with more crafted, nicer bottles, you could age them for at least 5, if not 10, if not 15 or 20 years, depending on the bottle. But if you are interested in aging white wine, I think it's really cool. I think it's a really great learning experience because I think for so many folks, if you've ever aged any wine, which you might not, and you might not have an interest in it. And if you don't, you don't. Like, I'm not saying you have to, but it can be kind of cool to see how white wine changes and kind of how those flavors change, because, I think a lot of us think of red wine, or you might go to a restaurant, you could get like a fancy bottle that's had some age on it. You don't necessarily see that with whites as much. So just throwing that out there as a suggestion, take it or leave it. Food pairing ideas. I'm going to give us more specific food pairing suggestions with each of these wines, but generally speaking, where Chard falls, it's decently friendly with food, but it's not your workhorse go-to. It's going to work with everything. So it's good with seafood. It's good with lighter meats, things like chicken and pork, turkey, things like that, and creamy pastas. It's one of the times where creamy food likes creamy wine. It actually works really, really well together. Some folks really they always want something to kind of cut through the cream, but if you're having like a creamy lemon pasta, it can really be really beautiful with a creamy Chardonnay that has some lemon notes to it. So those are just some kind of like general basic food pairing ideas, and we'll get more specific. These differences come from a few different places. There's a kind of an adage in the wine world that Chardonnay is made in the winery, which goes against what a lot of the wines that we carry and a lot of the wines that we love, those winemakers are like, no, the wine is made in the vineyard, right? It's all about how the grapes are grown, how they're treated, how they're harvested, all that stuff, right? And I think that's true. But the adage about that is that Chard, the grape from all over the world, relatively similar. It's really when it comes down to how it's made, that's where you kind of start to see the nuances in what you like and what you don't like. That said, the differences are going to come from soil for sure, and we're going to see that. So that's kind of where I focused tonight, was a little bit of soil, which kind of goes hand in hand with climate. So I kind of actually focused a little bit more on the vineyard side of things. I know a lot of the folks who are signed up for class, and I kind of wanted to make it interesting for everybody. Folks who have never taken a class with me before and folks who have taken like every class I've ever taught. I wanted to keep this class interesting. So I really changed the format and the kind of my choices. I changed it from any Chard class I've ever taught before. So get ready, y'all. We're in for some tasty treats. When I say that it's made in the winery, I'm happy to talk about any of these things in more detail, but the main things are whether the wine is aged on the lees, which are the spent yeast particles that are left over after fermentation is complete. It's pretty common in white wine to separate the lees out, to get those out, or to just like let them stay at the bottom of the fermentation tank and you don't stir and you kind of just like let it all go. If you wanted that kind of very round, creamy mouthfeel, you would age the wine on the lees and you might do some like gentle stirring, which is called batonnage. Malolactic fermentation is a process in which malic acid, which is green apple acid, turns into lactic acid, which is cream acid, and it is that creamy thing. That's what, when we talk about creamy chard, that's malolactic fermentation. And then the choice of aging vessel is super important in Chardonnay. It's super important in all wine. I'm not going to lie. I did a class about oak not too long ago. I think everybody in that class thought it was going to be a Chardonnay class, and it wasn't, because I knew I was doing this class. So it was actually a red wine focused class, which I think threw some folks for a loop. But Chardonnay aged in new American oak versus Chardonnay that's aged in stainless steel are two completely different beasts. They're going to appeal, maybe they appeal to the same person, probably not. They usually are going to appeal to different palates, and it really matters. So it's something that you really need to kind of figure out for yourself what you like in that regard and get after it, because you might end up with a chard you absolutely hate otherwise. I love this map from Wine Folly. I wish she did these maps for like every grape, but she doesn't. But she made this map of all the different wine regions where Chardonnay is prevalent. And I think it's just a great way to kind of see how much of the wine world grows Chardonnay. So I just think it's kind of like helpful to kind of see that. It also makes you realize like how very much of the world does not make wine, right? Because this is like pretty much all of the wine world. And you can see, right, it's like South Africa and Australia and New Zealand and, throughout Europe. And then there's like all sorts of, swaths of land where no wine is made. Before we dig into Chablis, are there any questions about kind of that fundamental information? Also, can we talk about hibiscus mojitos? That sounds delicious. There was that like phase a few years ago where like every brewery was making a hibiscus beer of some sort. And I really liked that. I liked that era. I liked the hibiscus saison era. It was a happy time for me. Oh, yay. Look, we've got hibiscus lovers. Well, that makes sense. We're all saying how much we like make your teeth hurt Chardonnay, right? So I guess that makes sense. So, all right, no fundamental questions. So then let's dig in to Chablis. So Chablis is, if you don't know it, it is a sub-region within Burgundy, France. Burgundy is the home place of Chardonnay. So Chardonnay is a child grape, of Pinot Noir and a white grape. So that's how closely linked Chard and Pinot are. Where Chard grows well, Pinot usually grows well, and vice versa. And we'll talk about that in a little while with one of our other wines. But Burgundy is the home place of both Pinot and Chardonnay. What you can expect from Chablis is that it's going to be lighter in body. You might even be kind of like surprised by how quite light it is. High in acidity, ranging from medium high to high, and bone stinking dry, super, super dry. The aromas and flavors that you get out of Chablis are arguably kind of unlike anywhere else, but very mineral driven. The fruit that is going to be there is going to kind of be like green and yellow fruit. So that can be things like lemon and lime or apple and pear, kind of depending, but it's never going to veer into really like ripe tree fruit or tropical fruit. So Chablis is a cool area. It's very close to Champagne. And so it's pretty cool there. So the fruit that you're going to get there is just not the ripe fruit flavors, right? It's kind of the leaner, tartar flavors. Some Chablis are kind of known for a little floralness. That doesn't mean you're going to have to pick it up on this particular wine, but that's kind of one of the things that you'll know. But really, people drink Chablis because they like minerals. They also drink Chablis because they're eating oysters. There is nothing quite like a wine pairing that's like, oh yes, those two things were absolutely 100% made to go together. And I will say that is Chablis and oysters. Also great with sushi, also great with kind of green salads, going after that kind of like brightness. It's really fantastic with those things. So if you haven't already started drinking, please do. And tell me what y'all think of this wine. I'm curious. This, I just adore it. So this is where I said I was going to talk about soil a little bit. I was going to get a little nerdy. So here we are getting nerdy. This is the soil in Chablis, and it is fossilized oyster shells. So there have been a lot of scientific studies about how does minerality like get into the wine, or like how is it that wines taste like rocks? And scientists have not been able to prove that vines or roots are actually like, it's not that there are actual minerals in most of these wines, right? They haven't been able to prove it, and therefore what they say is it's not scientifically proven. However, you look at this soil, right? And you look at these little seashells, these fossilized seashells, and then you smell this wine and it's like, oh, is it a little bit like picking up seashells? And then you taste it. And I just think it's like undeniable. I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't care what you've scientifically proven or not. Yeah, that's me and my soil geekiness. So thank you for all indulging me. But I just think it's like so apparent, right? It has that brininess. It has that saline quality to it that is so very clear that it grows on old seabed, right? I mean, it tastes like the sea, right? So cool. It looks like a lot of you are kind of agreeing, and that's really cool. Katya and Drew are picking up on a smokiness, and I agree with you, right? It's that like flintiness. Yeah, and all the tart citrusy acid. I don't know if they're watching live or not. There was one person who got the wines from us yesterday for class. So whether you're watching live or you're watching on the recording, I just want to call out that we did not have this particular bottle, the Fèvre Chablis. You got a different one, which is like arguably a better example. It actually has the Nautilus shell on the label. So whoever you are out there drinking the Seguino, it is gorgeous. And you're not missing out on anything, and you're tasting exactly kind of like Jeff and Elizabeth, great. It's super, super similar to what we're tasting. I think it's a little more minerally and a little bit lighter. Goes with Salatai, awesome. I'm getting a Han later. My family, we always do takeout on nights I teach. And so we were like, what should we have? And I wouldn't necessarily say like, oh, Thai food and chard, but I was like, oh, but we're gonna have that Chablis open, so let's do it. So great, I'm glad. Tons of chalk, absolutely 100%. Yep. Tegan's getting unripe pear. Katya and Drew are picking up on something that's really cool, that it's almost greenish in color. And that is, in fact, yes, the fact that the grapes are less ripe. So chard is, it looks like just a white grape. It's not like one of those, like it has a weird grayish hue or anything like that. But like, white wine grapes, they're not actually white grapes, right? They're green grapes. And so, yes, it is a little greenish in hue. And I think that's super cool that you picked up on that. Yeah. And Alyssa is saying almost dusty, like the texture. I'm getting a lot of texture. I don't know if other folks are getting that who have the Fèvre. I'm getting like a chalky minerality for sure, but also like so much acid, right? I may have shared this story with some of you before, but when I was little, my mom drank Inglenook. I don't know if any of you know what that is, but it was like a big jug wine, and we always had like the jug on the refrigerator door, and she drank Inglenook Chablis. And so I had tasted it from time to time as an Irish Catholic child. I had had some wine, and I hated it. I thought it was like super sour, and that it was like almost sweet. So fast forward, I started waiting tables when I was, 18 or 19, working at a not particularly nice place. And somebody ordered Chablis. And I said, oh, we don't have a Chablis, but that's pretty sweet. So you might like a Riesling. And they were like, Chablis is not sweet. And I was like, that person does not know what they're talking about. So then I go and I talk with the bartender. And they were like, Chablis is not sweet. Chablis is Chardonnay. And I was like, no, Chablis is Chablis, right? And I just like had that blockage, right? And I understand why, right? I had never seen the word Chardonnay on the bottle of wine that my mom was drinking. And my mom was drinking some rando white wine. Who knows what that was, right? It didn't have to be Chardonnay back then. It didn't have to it didn't have to come from Chablis, France, right? Unoaked Chablis definitely came from California. So, I think Franzia used to have a Chablis box. They shouldn't be able to get away with it anymore, right? EU laws say that now when you put you can't have that place name on there unless it actually comes from the place. But that just always sticks in my mind because I just thought Chablis was like cheap plonk. And it turns out it is not cheap plonk. It is absolutely phenomenal, delicious French Chardonnay from kind of the home place of it all. Is there anybody out there who's not enjoying this wine? I feel like a lot of folks jumped on the I love it train, but I'm curious to hear if there are people who aren't. Pam thinks it's just so-so. It is lean, right? It is definitely like other words that people use for French Chardonnay, generally speaking, but particularly Chablis, are like things like austere, where it's like maybe not as much as like you want, just like oomph, not as powerful as you might want. So it's totally fair if you are meh about it, or even more than meh. I'm a person who likes salty wines. I just did a private tasting earlier this afternoon, and they asked me like, what do I like in a wine? And I was like, oh, I like wines that taste like rocks. And they kind of laughed. And then halfway through the tasting, I poured them a French white that tastes like rocks. And they were like, oh, this is what you mean. Oh, you like this, right? And half of them did. Half of them really, really liked it. And they liked it much more than the fruity wine. But it was just kind of a funny moment for me where I was like, I know you all think I'm crazy, or like, I know you all think I'm like a total wine nerd, but here we go. Here's a wine that tastes like rocks. So take it or leave it. Within Burgundy at large, so Chablis is really far north in Burgundy. I mentioned that it's really close to Champagne. If you didn't know, Champagne can only be made from 3 grapes, and the most widely grown grape in Champagne is Chardonnay. So it kind of starts in Champagne and just kind of comes on south through Burgundy. There are sub-regions within Burgundy that are known for this kind of style, the leaner style, aged probably in stainless, going to come at you with all their acid and minerality. And then there are sub-regions that are really known for a lusher style that are going to be aged in oak, probably still like aged French oak barrels, but those are places like Meursault. And those are wines that are going to start in the 3 digits. So the first time I ever taught Chardonnay class, I really wanted to kind of include, pardon me, I'm sorry, my allergies are just, too much. I need a little, I don't know. Anyway, sorry. I really wanted to include that because I think it's a great opportunity for people to learn and to see where the oaky style that is so prevalent in California came from and like kind of what spawned it all. But these wines are just well outside of my budget. So if you ever have the chance, if you have a fancy friend, if you, I don't know, have an expense account at work or something, and you get to go out for that kind of wine, it can be amazing to try. So, and then there are wines from Macon, and I'll put this in the notes. Macon in the south, where it is ripe, it is warmer and they're riper. So Macon often is still aged in stainless, but they're fruity. They're very friendly. They're great for kind of transitioning someone from a California style to a French style if you wanted to kind of find something like that. So we have options like that at the shop if you're interested in kind of exploring more. So you kind of start in the north with Chablis, where, what we're seeing, and you end in Macon with the fruit. So it kind of lots of little stops along the way. And Chardonnay is not just grown in Burgundy in France. So the Languedoc region, which is just continue on down to the coast and then all along the southeastern coast, Chardonnay is grown there in large quantities. So cheap French white. If you're there and you get a carafe of Vin Blanc at the table and it's, however many euros it would be now, 5 or 10 or something, I don't even know. It most likely is going to be some blend of Chardonnay. So it grows very, very readily in that area as well. So Katya and Drew are asking, what could we expect from Premier Cru Chablis versus this one in general? Good question. So what those sites, to explain what Premier Cru is, those particular distinct sites, and it can be within a vineyard, or it could be an entire vineyard, but they can be very precise. This plot of land is designated as a Premier Cru, meaning that like the wine that comes from this particular area is so special that it gets to have this special designation. So what you can expect from those is, if you have the ability to kind of taste through a variety, you could get to know like the distinct flavors and aromas of each of those places. But generally speaking, they're going to be similar-ish to this. I would say that you would probably, there's more complexity. And there's going to be a little, I know that some of you didn't find this to be obviously fruity, but there would be even less obvious fruit. Some of the Premier Cru Chablis that I have had is like, gosh, they're beautiful. I don't know that I've had one that has underwhelmed me, really. And I would straight up tell you if I had. I've had Premier Cru red Burgundy that I'm like, meh. It's good. I would happily drink it, but I don't think it's worth the money. I've never had a Premier Cru Chablis that has underwhelmed me, but they are quite savory, and they're quite light. And I've thought to myself, like, God, if I had to do this in a blind tasting, I would not pick Chardonnay. Maybe my brain could work and could get me to Chablis as an option, but I think I would just think it was something else entirely. So I hope that helps answer that question. Any other questions about Chablis specifically, or kind of French Chardonnay, what you can expect from our friends in France? I did not include bubbles, you'll notice, but if you ever get a Blanc de Blanc from really, honestly, anywhere in the world, you can make a Blanc de Blanc, meaning white of whites. You could make a Blanc de Blanc from anything. So you could make a sparkling Pinot Grigio and call it a Blanc de Blanc if you wanted to. But usually, if a winery is going to call something a Blanc de Blanc, it's going to be 100% Chardonnay. So it can be really fun if you have these bottles and you wanted to, keep going down this rabbit hole or explore even more. Trying a sparkling Chardonnay can be really awesome and can help inform your palate even more. Any other questions? Thoughts before we leave our friends? Alexis didn't know Blanc de Blanc Chard. True story. It is. Again, it could be something else, but if it is champagne, there are only 3 grapes allowed in champagne, and only one of them is white. So if it is champagne Blanc de Blanc, it has to be Chardonnay. And if it's, from anybody who's not being cheeky, it's going to be Chardonnay. All right. With that, we're going to come to the US and we're going to stay here. So if it's time for us to go to the Willamette Valley. Side note, everybody, I'm going to the Willamette Valley in just a few weeks. I'm gonna get on an airplane, and I don't know how I feel about that. There was a story on NPR today about how the incidence of unruly passengers has gone up drastically through COVID, but really since January 6th. And I'm just like, damn it. I'm going to take my 9-year-old on a plane, but I've never been. I'm seeing people. I've never been north of Napa. So I am pretty excited. I've never been to Oregon before, and I'm very excited to go to Portland. So I'll report back. Anywho, let's talk about Willamette Valley. So Chard was planted here. So when wine first came in any real way, in any real like commercial way. So there was wine before this, but when wine first really kind of like came to the Willamette and to Oregon, they very quickly realized, winemakers there very quickly realized that the climate and even some of the terrain, but particularly the climate, was quite similar to Burgundy. So it led all of them to say, awesome, Pinot Noir. Great, we're going to grow Pinot Noir. And some of them had the presence of mind to say, well, if it's good for Pinot Noir, it might be good for Chardonnay. But that didn't prove to be true right away. So Chard has been planted in this area since the 1960s, but it just was not doing well. And it was I will say, as someone who started in the industry in the early 2000s, that was confounding to me, because the idea that Pinot Noir can grow well somewhere, but Chardonnay doesn't grow well there, and the white grape is Pinot Gris, but Pinot Gris grows in Alsace. Like, I was like, I don't understand this. Like, what's happening? But the Chardonnay that was in the Willamette was not great. So it is only within the last, I would say, like 5-ish years that Chardonnay is really kind of coming into its own. There are winemakers who've been making it this whole time. David Adelsheim is one of my favorite winemakers, and he's celebrating his 50th anniversary, and I believe that he's made Chard throughout his winery's career. But you're starting to like see it more now. So it's still kind of on the lighter bodied side of things. It's not like its southern neighbor in California, but the acidity is definitely lower. What it's known for are kind of tree fruit notes and citrus fruit notes. So more, even more of that kind of apple, even more of that pear, and also spice notes. So unlike Chablis, they may or may not use oak. And so you'll start to kind of get some more spicy vanilla and things like that. And then the food pairings here, I don't want to tell you what to taste, but I will tell you that one of these pairings came from, like, I tasted this wine and was like, oh my God, I need to have it with that. So Heather and Tegan describe it as a flavor bomb, and I agree. I think it's just like, whoa, there's so much, right? Like, whereas our Chablis friend was lean, this is bolder, right? There's more to it. You can definitely start to like taste, I think, more familiar flavors to some of us, right? So when I was talking about the creamy lemon pasta at the beginning, I do think that this would be really amazing with it. As well as Thanksgiving. Don't forget about Thanksgiving. And as Heather and Tegan already called out, anything gingery, I think, would be amazing with this. Katie and Matt both immediately thought it smelled like scotch. I see that. I think it smells like sherry. I think it smells like nuts, right? I think it has that nuttiness to it. This is a picture of the soil in Willamette. So super, super different. It's it's called Jory soil, and it is red. It is this crushed rock. I believe there is some clay. Toasted almond, Fino sherry, right? Like, again, I don't mean to tell you guys what to smell or taste, but I do think that it's got a nuttiness. Maple syrup we get that's aged in bourbon barrels. Oh, interesting. P.S. I love that maple syrup. I think it's delicious. I do think that the smell and palate are not quite, like, I don't get a ton of nuttiness on the palate. I feel like I smell it more than I taste it. I don't know what y'all think. Banana bread. Oh, interesting. I have tasted Chardonnay that really is banana-y. I I don't think that this falls quite there. But I think that the baked goods thing makes sense to me. Yeah. Yellow apples. Yeah. Agreed. Totally. And like the first time I tasted it, I mean, I guess I'm kind of getting it now that the almonds are kind of going away. I was really like taken with the ginger thing. Like I really glommed onto that the first time I tasted this wine, where I really felt like it smelled and tasted like fresh ginger in a really delightful way. A natural wine flavoring too, tart, a bit yeasty, nutty. Yeah. I think there's just like that great yeastiness. And that yeastiness is going to come from the lees aging. So when I was talking earlier about, kind of letting the wines hang out with the yeast, right? As you might imagine, if you let wine spend time with yeast, it tastes like yeast. Who would have guessed? So that can impart that flavor too. I love that people think it smells and tastes like whiskey. It's fascinating. And I don't disagree with you guys. I think it's so cool. It's really, really fun. Banana bread, but not in a great way. This isn't your favorite chard. Yeah, that's totally fair. I would say, keep giving them some time. Give Willamette a few more years. They are dealing, first of all, they're dealing with like, the absolute like worst, not the worst climate, but they're dealing with a lot of climate fluctuation and drought. And they also have their own set of wildfires, and they're trying, and climate change is really affecting things. It's so much warmer there than it used to be. So see kind of as how the Chardonnay identity of Willamette continues to grow. I think for now, it's safe to say that like you will get some fruit, right? And some more obvious flavors, generally speaking, bolder than our French friend. But it might kind of vary, I guess, what I would say. Like it doesn't have a calling card yet. Napa Chard has a calling card. So yeah. And Katya and Drew were saying that they opened it last night and they like it more tonight. So Jeff and Elizabeth, you might want to hang out and see, taste it again tomorrow and see what you think tomorrow. A little more earthy, savory, like Oregon Pinots. Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. Are we going to get smoky 2020 wines, or did they throw out the grapes? Depends. It depends on the winery. So we have in the shop, we have 2020 rosés from Willamette and from California. And the Willamette rosés are an interesting bunch this year, and Willamette whites as well, because we have some 2020s from different wineries out there. And there are wines that you can definitely, like smoke taint is the wine phrase for it. And it has always been thought of as a flaw, as you might imagine. And winemakers are kind of at a crossroads to figure out, like, well, what do we do? Because these are the grapes and this is the vintage. There are some winemaking techniques that different wineries are using to basically like to expose the grapes and the juice to as much oxygen as possible to kind of blow off the smoke taint. So I had, to go back to Adelsheim for a second, I had their rosé a couple of weeks ago, and it is stunning. And I asked her straight up, like, I was like, okay, so why doesn't your wine taste like smoke like everybody else's? And she talked me through kind of what they're doing. And she's like, really, everybody else's? And I was like, well, no, there's like the group that has a smokiness. There's the group that tastes really manipulated. Like it tastes really fake. Like there's just something really weird about it. There are those ones. And then there are some really pretty ones. And so, Katie, to answer your question in a very long roundabout way, we're going to see 2020 wines from the area. We're going to see 2020 wines from California, and it's going to be a bit of a crapshoot. It's going to depend on the wineries. It's going to depend on, how close the smoke was to their vines. So stay tuned. Teutonic, which I think a lot of you know, Teutonic is based in downtown Portland. And a few years ago, they had wildfires, a few vintages before. He made a wine called Rauch wine, right? He was like going after like the smoked beer people. Like Rauch is smoke in German. And so he went for a Rauch wine and he was like going after it. And I tasted it and I was like, I like this. I don't think it's smoky enough. It wasn't super smoky. And then I've had other wines that I'm like, whoa, that's like mezcal. So it's a varying thing for sure. I know that it's the end of June, but can I just say for a hot second that I think the idea of this roots chard with Thanksgiving dinner is just like making me so happy just to even consider it. It just sounds so good to me. Questions, thoughts before we leave Willamette? I saw earlier that Katya studied there. Do other people have Willamette connections? Is anybody else of the Pacific Northwest persuasion? Which one of you? Sorry, it says Heather and Tegan. I'm from the Portland area, so I'm just curious which. Heather, great. I'm excited to see your hometown then. Yay, I know. I know. I share that with you, Kristen and Patty. Oh, look at this. I know Ellen and Mike Carlson are in the Willamette. They asked me for winery recommendations. And when at the time they were asking me, like nothing was open. It's very interesting. I have to say, I don't know if any of you are traveling at all, but it's been a very interesting experience for Connor and I to try to plan this trip. And things are things are not as open there as they are here. And I understand why, but it's been a reality check for us. So you rode on it. Oh my God. I did crew in high school. I was a coxswain in high school and I love rowing on the river so much. That's so cool. There's a place out, not in Willamette. There's a place out in the Columbia Gorge area that there's like a cute little drive-through restaurant with ice cream and whatever. And we were looking at it and they just like had swimming in the river. And my daughter was like, I don't know about swimming in the river there. And I was like, oh, I know that I will be doing that, whether you are or not. Oh, you can see the coxswain thing. Yeah. The loud yelling person. That would be me. Sugar pine. Yes. Yes, Heather. That's it. That's absolutely it. Yes. That's it. They have waffle grilled cheeses. That's ridiculous, right? Okay, great. Enough about that. Let's talk about wine. Pam was also a coxswain. That also makes sense to me. You're more petite than me. I was like, well, we don't need to talk about that. Anyway, I loved crew. I loved it so much. And then I went to Alexis Road. Oh my God, I love this. Okay, I'm going to say one more thing and then we'll get to the wine. I loved crew so much. And I kind of envisioned, I had dreams of going to Georgetown, which did not happen. But I really, kind of pictured myself rowing crew through college. I don't really know why I thought they would do that. And then I went to school at Iowa. And while I was at Iowa, they had like their fledgling crew program. And I was like, I don't know. And then I'm seeing in the notes here that like 6 a.m. practices, right? And I was like, I had been out of it for like a year or two. And I was like, you know what I like? I like sleeping. And I left crew behind, and that's my sad story. Okay, we're going to go to California now. If you haven't poured yourself the next wine, let's do it. Thank you all for letting me go on my little jag about my vacation and my crew history. Sorry, it's a little disjointed. Okay, so when picking a Chardonnay from California, I wanted to pick something that I thought would appeal to a wide variety of palates while still being true to the place. So what that meant for me was that I didn't want to go with the big unctuous buttery Chardonnays because I thought that enough of you might not enjoy that style. And what I don't want to do is prove people right about their hatred. I want to show a variety of flavors. So I picked this wine because I have long loved their second label, which is called Sidekick. And I've never carried heroin on the shelf, and I really enjoy this wine. And so I just thought this was a great opportunity to get to talk about it. So this is from Monterey. And so what you want to know about Chardonnay in general in California is that it was relatively obscure. It wasn't grown that widely. It really wasn't that big of a deal until the late 70s. So in the late 1970s, mid 1970s, there was this taste test, blind tasting. I think some of you know this story. A wine shop owner in England who was an incredibly well-regarded man, Steve Spurrier, and he actually just passed away like a month or so ago. Steve owned this like amazing shop. And I believe import business as well. And he was saying, hey, there's some really exciting wines coming out of California. And his French friends were like, absolutely not. That's not true. That can't be true. So they did this blind tasting. It's called the Tasting of Paris. Why is my mind? The Judgment of Paris. Thank you. Sorry. My brain just stopped working there for a second. The Judgment of Paris. They did this blind tasting of French wines versus American wines. And lo and behold, it was Chardonnay from California that scored best when it came to the whites. It wasn't from Monterey. It was from Chateau Montelena in Napa. But that is what made winemakers in California say like, oh, should we be doing Chardonnay? Should we be paying more attention to this grape? And so then it really kind of became a thing. I think as most of you know, it became such a thing through the 1980s and really still till today. It's a thing, Chardonnay in California. In Monterey specifically, what you can expect is that it's definitely fuller in body. Acid is lower here. I will say one of the reasons that I like Iconic Wines is he does go after acid a little bit. So it's a little bit higher than just like kind of the general benchmark. But Monterey is really known for different flavors than we've had up till now, which are the tropical and the stone fruit flavors. It is warmer here. So we're leaving behind our citrus friends and our, unripe pear friends, and we're moving to things like peach, things like pineapple, banana. We're moving into that vein. And oak. They don't go after as aggressive an oak thing as some other places. Monterey's thing is a fruit-forward Chardonnay. That's what they want. That's what they're going for. And that's how they kind of see themselves setting themselves apart from everybody else. So food pairing ideas. This and scallops just like sing. Salad. I love a little like crostini with warm goat cheese and a green salad. And this would just be phenomenal with that. So some good food pairing ideas here for you. And then because I wanted to finish out our soil convo, this is what the soil in Santa Lucia Highlands is. So that's the specific subregion within Monterey where the heroin comes from. And this is the soil there. So very, very different, right? You can kind of see these large chunks of rock and kind of sand in between. So a totally different ball game than we had in the other two places. How is Monterey Chardonnay for you guys? I love the body and mouthfeel on this one. For sure, right? It's definitely weightier. It's like this is what I love about the side, I mean, not really side by sides, but in a row, I guess we'll call it, like where you can just see like, oh my gosh, this is the same grape, 3 totally different ways, right? Yeah, the weight on this is just really exciting. Others, you're all very quiet. Does that mean you all hate it? It's okay if you do. Oh, good. You both love this one. Great. I was like, somebody's got to say something. Kristen, this was the style of Chard I originally fell in love with, and you still do. That's awesome. That's great. Particularly excellent with Car Valley goat cheddar. Oh, that goat cheddar is so delicious. It's so good. Pam doesn't hate it. She's just drinking. Great. I'll take that. I'll take it. And Alyssa says that she really likes this one. It might be her favorite yet. That's great. That's exciting. Jeff says, I typically like Chards that are more creamy buttery, but this one isn't overwhelming and still has some acid. I completely agree. This is the first California. Oh, sorry. Elizabeth said that. Sorry. I don't mean to give credit to just the person whose name is first. That's all that was happening. Let's see. I think this is the first California Chard Drew has liked, and he likes it a lot. Love the fruit cocktail vibe, but still nice acid. Sweet corn. I love that. And I think that it would be great in a month or so to have it with some sweet corn. I think it'd be delicious. Bears well with a whining baby. You need wine. Have some wine. Yep. Tegan says that this one makes her happy. It's like a comforting blanket. That's so great. Patty even gave it a thumbs up. Look at this. This is so exciting. Yay. I love it because when I picked it, I was like, it doesn't totally smack you with the oak, right? It doesn't totally hit you with cream. But it does have it. But I think what's so great about it is the balance, right? Alexis is picking up on that. Like, there's just enough acid there to keep the whole thing in check. And you're all talking about the food you're having with it, right? Like, it's food friendly. This is food friendly Chardonnay. Like, how freaking awesome is that, right? Like, it's a little bit of everything. Yes. Like, I'm so excited. Yay. I'm so glad. And the label is super awesome, right? So I don't know if any of you remember Sidekick that I used to carry, but it was also a superhero label. And they had a rosé that we've carried from time to time called Secret Identity. So that the idea there was that was the hero or the superhero when she's off duty. But what's really cool is that you all hit on what the winemaker is going for, because he said he wanted all of it. He wanted it to have every single thing that you want in a Chardonnay in one thing, because that's your perfect heroine, is kind of his idea behind it. So that makes my heart happy. I say that it doesn't matter if you don't like the wines, and that is legit true. But when you guys like a wine for the reason that I picked it for you, that part does make me happy. Not gonna lie, it does. It is a rewarding part of my day. So Jeff and Elizabeth are asking, this might be a novice question, but how does one accomplish that balance? And not a novice question at all. So it's a matter of picking grapes at the right time so that they still have some acidity to them. So in a place as warm as Monterey, California, you might have to pick earlier than you might if you want, if you were wanting that kind of like more ripe fruit flavors and stuff like that. So that's kind of like really where it comes from. And that's why when I said at the beginning that the adage being that Chardonnay is made in the winery, that some of that is true. But I also think but you have to know what you're doing in the vineyard to get a good bottle of wine, right? Other things that he could do, like he ages this in oak. I believe that it's a 20-80 split. So 20 in stainless and 80% in oak, I think. But most of that oak is neutral. So what that means is that it's used oak. So it's going to give some of those flavors, but it's not going to be as bold and in your face, right? So things like the malolactic fermentation I talked about, where you take green apple acid and turn it into cream acid. You can do that for just part of the wine. You don't have to do 100% of the wine with that process. You can do a little bit of it to give it just this little bit of creaminess. So it is masterful. It's masterful winemaking. That's what it is. Really and truly. It's great wine. That's so cool. Katie Payne is saying that all of these are excellent and not the standard Chardonnay that you've had in the past, and you're very impressed. And Alexis is echoing that. And that is super cool. Thank you. I'm really glad because I know that Chard is, I think we only had one person who said they were ABC, right? Which is anything but Chard. But I know that it's looked down upon these days, right? I think that people think it's crappy. I was going to swear, but I'm going to choose not to. I think that, you know, people think it's badly made, right? You know, I mean, I think enough of us have gone to weddings and had to drink yellowtail Chardonnay. That like, you don't like it, but Jeff and Elizabeth are saying that it's their favorite. And like, I also agree with that. I think Chardonnay is amazing. I think that Chardonnay, I would happily drink any of these bottles anytime, right? I think that they're all super interesting. There's a lot to think about in each of these wines, right? So I'm really glad to hear you guys say that. I'm going to share a little anecdote. Please let me know if you have questions. It's what our aunts drank with ice, of course. Totally. Like my mom with the Unoaked Chablis, man. I feel that 100%. I completely understand. You know, for me, I was like, I don't know if, half of you aren't probably old enough to remember this wine, but there's this wine called Toasted Head. When I started getting into the wine profession, it's called Toasted Head. And it really legit tasted like oak in a glass. I mean, like oak chips were in your glass. And I was like, why would anyone ever want to drink this? And I just kind of dismissed it. And then I got schooled and learned about good Chardonnay. So I'm really glad. Cynthia saying they were the ABC voter, but are loving the heroin. That's awesome. That makes me super happy. Katie likes Chardonnay and thinks all of these are great. I have tried Rombauer. Yes, Alexis. I used to sell it at one of the restaurants where I worked. It's very oaky and it is actually quite sweet. No one would ever like fess up to that fact, but, and it is expensive now. I had somebody want to special order it for a gift. And so, you know, I'm happy to get that for them. And it was like, I don't know, man, more than I think it's worth. We'll just say that. All right. So questions, shout them out. Let me know. I know people like to do the rankings of the favorites. So let's do that. Let's do that. I was going to share an anecdote, but it doesn't need to be shared. I would love to know your favorites. I'm curious. 312 for both of you. Cool. 132 for both of you. Okay. 132, 312. So it looks like 132 and 312. Eric likes number 2 the best. I was going to say the only thing I'm noticing is number 2 is the last on everybody's list. So Eric, thank you. I'm glad to see it. Everybody else is in a different camp. That's all right. It's so great. I love it. It really is like a pretty like even split on this, which is awesome. And again, please don't, do give number 2 a try on second day. Katya and Drew pointed that out. And I would be, don't rule out Willamette, I guess. Don't dismiss it out of hand. They're still finding their way. Someone has to be third. I did like it. Patty didn't like it. That's fine. You like them all. That's great. That's great. I love it. And I'm really glad. I think I said this at the beginning that I taught it, or I'm using a different format. So I've always taught it 100% unoaked to 100% oaked with lots of stops in between. And with the 3 wine format, it was kind of like, yeah, obviously I could do 100% unoaked, a 50-50-ish kind of thing, and then a super oaky thing. But I was also mindful of like, is that what you all wanted to drink? And that what I have found over the years is that the unoaked people like hate the oak and vice versa. And so I wanted to go for kind of like different style and to talk about it from a sense of place rather than just the oak treatment, because I do think that that is such a huge part of this, right? Is that like, oh, now I know I want to go on a wine trip in 2022 and I'm going to go to Monterey. Well, shit, I never would have thought of that. See, I did end up swearing. You know? So, and Alexis is saying that that sounds like a great option for when you don't have to purchase the wines. Absolutely. You know, when wine classes are back in person, for those of you who have never joined us for a wine class actually in person at the shop, it's worth noting that I usually pour 6 wines rather than 3 because y'all aren't taking you don't have the wines at home. It's an 1.5 hour long format. And I usually do six wines. So, and I usually include something kind of on the higher end, maybe something that table wine wouldn't normally carry, because I see it as a great opportunity for people to try something that they otherwise might not. So someday we'll all gather in person, but we're also going to keep doing virtual, because I've heard from a lot of you that you like to be at home eating dinner, right? So I think that's everything, guys. Thank you all so much. This was really fun. Our next wine class isn't for a whole month. So we have an in-person event, but it is currently sold out. So if you haven't already gotten your tickets to the rosé party, you can email me and get on the wait list. Otherwise, we have really fun virtual class, which is going to be blind tasting price point. So you're going to try to figure out which wines fall into which price categories. And I'm really psyched about this. This was an idea of Patty, who's in class tonight. This was his idea, and I'm really excited to run with it. I think it's going to be really fun. So join us for that. And stay tuned for more. If you have feedback on the in-person versus virtual, I'm open. I'd really love to hear kind of more from y'all about whether you want to do both or just one style. I don't have set plans, so I'm curious. Thank you, everybody. I love y'all very much. It's going to be a while before I see you in this format again, but I will hopefully see you around the shop. And then I'll talk to you about Willamette when I get back in July. So bye, everybody. Thank you, and thank you. It's so great to hear y'all are having a good time. Thank you. I will hopefully have fun in Oregon. Bye, everybody. Thank you.